Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. Yesterday afternoon, I travelled from a small country in the UK halfway across the world. So I don't really know what day of the week it is or what time it is, but I'm very happy to be here. I'm very honoured to be here. And I hope in our conversation, after I've shown you some pictures, that I can learn more about you and about your perception of inclusivity. So in this planet of ours, there are 1 billion people estimated to have a disability. That's a massive number. That means it's about 15% of the world population. And now this disability affects people massively. It affects their education, their relationships, their sexuality, their healthcare, employment, their ability for independent living and housing, and their ability to access leisure activities and have fun. But research has shown that the most effective way of changing people's perception of disability is actually through the contact with people without disabilities. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is specifically about learning disability or intellectual disability rather than physical disability. This is the area that Hijinx specializes in. And many people with a learning disability are also affected by something called hate crime, where they are bullied, and also by something called mate crime. This is when people are befriended and then exploited. And this can be exploitation, which can be both sexual but also financial. So this is where Hijinx comes in. We are based in a small country in the west of the UK, with a Welsh company in Wales, a land of sea and mountains and song. It's a small country, but even in this small country, there's a massive 53,000 people with a learning disability, that's adults, and a further 15,000 children with a learning disability. So this is 2.16% of the population of adults and 2.5% of the population of children. Now, I want to introduce you to some of these young learning disabled adults with learning disabilities. This young man here is called Jack. And Jack was born with something called Williams syndrome. Now, Jack, like his friends Alex and Nancy, who has epilepsy and complex disabilities, are all in their early 20s. Now, they left school at the age of 19. All their lives, they attended a special school where they were well protected and given opportunities within their school. Then at the age of 19, they leave school, and suddenly the world looks a little bleak. They are, what we often say, is that they are almost going to retirement at the age of 19. There are very, very few opportunities for them. Now, Jack, Alex, Nancy, and also these next few faces that you're going to see, all have one thing in common. They all have an ambition to be seen and to be heard. They all have an ambition to be professional performers. But as 19-year-olds leaving school without any qualifications, there's absolutely no chance of them being able to do that. They cannot go to drama school, they cannot go to university, they cannot go to film school, they cannot go to dance school. Impossible because they do not have the academic qualifications. If they're lucky, they might live in a town or a village or a city that has an arts class. And once a week, they might be able to go on a Monday night and do drama or do some dancing. But the actual ambition and the reality of them becoming professional performers is an impossible dream. So what Hijinx sets out to do is to try and meet that gap. So we decided to actually set up schools for performers to enable them to become professional performers. And these are some of our actors now. This is Stuart, who's actually been with us since 2012. And Tom, who wants to be a stand-up comedian. Each of these performers has particular skills. Some are great comedians, some are amazing dancers, some are fantastic circus performers. Laura here has Down syndrome and is in our next show, which is opening in February. Simon, Ted has just come back from the Edinburgh Festival from a UK tour. So all of these 70 actors are now all working professionally. So, I just wanted to explain to you how Hijinx work. We think of ourselves as being a little bit like a small housing estate. So, our main purpose is our mission, which is to make it commonplace to see actors with learning disabilities on our stages and our screens. Our values are to be very ambitious and to be dynamic. When we start our activity, the first thing that happens is that we select young, talented adults and train them to become professional actors. Once they are trained, and during their training, they are given various opportunities. They can work in theatre, and we both make theatre with them, but we also find opportunities for them with other theatre companies. We make films, and we also cast our actors in films, and we work with television companies and film companies. We also seek jobs for them. We seek jobs for them to deliver role play. And then finally, we have a participation program. Now, the participation program is for those who do not want to work professionally as actors, but want to use drama as a way of increasing their confidence, their self-esteem, their ability to work together as a team. Sometimes people from the participation house will, as it were, cross over the road and join the academy house in order to start working professionally. Some with more complex disabilities will remain and happily remain within that participation house. Now, I'm just going to go back a little bit to these actors. Now, what we try and do is to actually remove the negative connotations of the word disabled. We work with actors whose brains are wired differently. I always think of myself as somebody who is neurotypical. My brain is wired in a very ordinary kind of way. Josh here, his brain is wired differently. And as a result, he's infinitely more interesting than I am. If Josh walked into the room now, he would be the most fascinating person in the room. He would have a different way of looking at the world. He would tell different kinds of stories, and he would perceive the world from a different angle. For us, this is a fantastic skill. And this is why we believe that actors like Josh make great theatre. If you think about the best pieces of theatre, the greatest performances that you have seen, they'll all be theatre that has changed your mind about how the world looks. They'll have made you look at the world in a different kind of way. And this is what Josh can do. Because Josh can tell us stories which will then become theatre or film performances, which will question our perception of the world. So we don't only make theatre and make film in order to reduce the inequality of people not being able to access the creative arts, but also because we believe that the creative arts become better because of the inclusion of people like Josh. So, and I just want to tell you a little bit more about each of the houses on the Hijinx estate. So let's look at academies. Now, an academy is a full-time professional training. Each actor on an academy has 800 hours of contact time a week. They are trained by the best choreographers, directors, film personnel, all people who are actually working at the very, very top of their game. So during the year at an academy, the students will learn a number of skills. So they've got circus skills, they'll do mask work, commedia dell'arte, improvisation, ensemble work. Each day starts with a very intensive 40 minutes of keep fit training, mindfulness, and yoga. They'll then have a 3-hour session with a tutor, and it may be, for example, it might be on a Monday morning, it'll be contemporary dance, and Monday afternoon will be clowning. Tuesday morning could be improvisation and storytelling, and Tuesday afternoon might be audition techniques. Each of the tutors works for the 12-week program, so they'll work every Monday morning for 12 weeks, and then at the end of that 12 weeks, we actually have a public sharing where we invite people from the industry to come and see the work that's been produced during the course of that module. Playing actually becomes quite an important part. Theatre games is a very important part of the training. And from the games that we play, many ideas come out for us to actually make theatre work. So when we make a piece of theatre, we never use a script, a play script from off a shelf. So we will never make Shakespeare's King Lear. We will only ever make a piece of theatre that actually comes out of the work that's been produced at an academy. These are some students working on, actually on a script that they wrote. So how did that all start? Well, in 2012, although Hijinx has actually been around for a long time as a traditional touring theatre company, in 2012, we set up our first small academy with 7 young men and women who were all neurodivergent, whose brains were wired differently. Of those, 3 of them had autism, and 4 of them had Down syndrome. When I joined the company and I first went to one of these classes, the academy classes, I was bowled over by the commitment, by the work ethic, and by the quality of the students, the work that the students were producing. And I thought, this is amazing. When I joined the company, I had no idea that these academies existed. To the public, Hijinx was a theatre company. But below the surface were this extraordinary class, this extraordinary academy. So what I wanted to do was to grow it. So in 2013, we set up a new academy in North Wales. So the first academy grew from 7 students to 12. We held some auditions in North Wales, and we had 16 adults that we chose to join the academy in North Wales. The following year, we moved into West Wales and set up a new academy. In 2015, we went to a small town called Aberystwyth on the west coast. And we also, because of the demand for places, we also set up the 5th academy, second one, in Cardiff. So within 3 years, we had grown from 7 actors to 70 actors. We now had academies so that everybody who wanted to be a professional actor with a learning disability in Wales could actually access an academy within an hour and a half drive's time. We also started finding that because what we were offering was so unique, is that people were coming from England and were driving, in some cases, an hour and a half or 2 hours a day in order to come to an academy. We've now had 3 families have moved from England into Wales in order to be closer to an academy. One of our greatest problems now is that we now have waiting lists of people who want to attend. So, we now have 70 actors. The training for these actors isn't finite. We don't have a start date and a finish date. When you're in an academy, you can remain in an academy for the lifetime. Unlike a traditional drama school, where you will maybe have 3 or 4 years training, and you then finish, and then you go out and you try and find work, and you find yourself an agent. For Hijinx, we know that that would be an inappropriate model. So an actor will remain with us and will continue improving, and we remain there in order to support them to attend auditions and to be cast in external shows as well as our own shows.